All seeing eye. Yeah. It's really funny what the realness bring, cause everybody wanna kill the king. A couple snakes in the grass, I see them and they be slithering. To kill a mockingbird, will it sing? Yeah. And motherfucker, you could kiss the ring. And I get bread when I spill the beans. 2 birds, 1 stone, I know it can be bewildering. To kill a mockingbird, will it sing?
Feeling, just to know that you are near.
This is the studio now. Those aren't blankets, those are soundproofing, flame retardant, tactical sheets. And
only later did I realize this looks like Rogan's new podcast room.
This is what I'm working with, alright? I'm trying to have that college dropout energy, that SoundCloud 8th grade prep megadose. Not sponsored. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is the official Sid here with Let's Make It Official, and tonight we'll be talking about the movie Chronicle and analyzing some of the philosophy present in it. They kind of shove like this philosophy in your face as part of like the dialogue. The screenplay is written by Max Landis, who wrote other works that you probably know, like American Ultra. The dialogue is definitely supposed to be like high school dialogue. Oh my god, dude, I was fucking... Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, I guess I decided to not record audio on the glass snowball thing concoction I have for high school dropout energy. Oh, excuse me, college dropout. I want to be a little bit more educated. I might have to redo this whole fucking thing, to be honest. So yeah, I have to redo this whole thing because I didn't have my snowball set up as the audio, so now we're gonna do some collapse here.
Cool, so yeah. So now that I have this so now that I have this, let's actually talk about the philosophy in the movie. I feel like this is a thick, like, we should be able to just have microphones that are this thick, like, or like handles for microphones that are this thick, because it feels like, usually it's like a freaking, like the girth is like the size. In Chronicle, the first thing we get mentioned in like one of the second, third scene in is like Arthur Schopenhauer and how Matt, he's like reading all about it, and pretty much what it ends in is just like, yeah, so he's just pessimistic, so you should give up on life. He does mention his theory for metaphysics on will and how will encompasses everything. Where Schopenhauer got that from is from the Buddhist teachings, from, shout out to my boy Siddhartha, shout out to Sids. Atman is like the soul, and then Brahman is like the matter, the universe that encompasses everything, and the goal is to be one with Brahman. The elevated state of being is to be one with Brahman. So what does that have to do with Chronicle? Probably like absolutely nothing, but they wanted to mention Arthur Schopenhauer for some reason, and the only reason I can think of is maybe the crystal that they all touch is like, or at least the powers. So the crystal that they all touch, or at least the powers, is like something having to do with like a metaphor for like will and like the power of will chasing them. But it's really, I'm not sure about that one. Pretty much a reach hot take.
There were giant organisms, sometimes as big as a half-mile wide, that were essentially just crystalline rock formations. They couldn't think, really. They were almost like a form of algae. They were massive. And the way they would move and propel themselves through the lava was electromagnets. And 3 humans heard one of them. The humans in Chronicle are then drawn to the hole. You go into the hole, and it turns you into a telekinetic drone. You can then manipulate electromagnetic fields, which would allow you to move anything, although it would cause intense strain on your brain, nosebleeds. But you're essentially a drone, and your job is to go and collect food, and you're connected to the other drones, except for the one in Chronicle was very, very old and very, very sick, and it died during the drone making process. And 3 kids ended up with telekinesis, who should have just been absorbed by this thing at the end of its feeding period. And they ended up with telekinesis, and things went pretty shitty for them. No one would ever fucking guess that. That's what was in the hole in Chronicle.
Take this with like a grain of salt, and we're just doing this for fun. Outside of film analysis being contrived, the one thing we can talk about that is in this movie is Jung. Jung's mentioned during the party scene. Matt's just like, yeah, it's just people searching for widespread validation. He's like, it's pretty lame, this party. And yeah, he gets roasted by Dane DeHaan, good for him, but Andrew in this movie. The only thing that I can think of for Jung that might actually be present in this movie that might be worth even mentioning is a few things. One, synchronicity. Synchronicity is pretty much non-causal, so like think about like, I'm trying to think about like pouring water. Okay, so I give a lot of poor examples here on causality, so just think clapping your hands. With synchronicity, it's non-causal. And what it really has to do with is something that may seem like coincidental, it actually might have more meaning to your deeper self. Synchronicity could just be a rationalization for the chaotic world that we exist in, and our brains do just search for patterns in general, so I don't want to just make it like that's a fact, even though I'm trying to make an argument for it in this movie. Actually, let me give you one example of synchronicity. So I was studying Jung for this video, like just briefly touching on it. This is all entry level like conversation, it's nothing crazy, but with Jung I was researching him like all day the other day. We came home from the bar, out of all the games to pick, all of them, we picked Rainbow Six, New Vegas 2. Oh my god, I said New Vegas. I've been playing a lot of Fallout New Vegas. Speaking of Fallout New Vegas, when Andrew's going on his rampage, he just kind of moves around the dead bodies ragdoll like it's the Fallout New Vegas ragdoll engine. You're moving like dead bodies.
The same thing as in Fallout.
And on top of that, when Andrew's like at the end, he's like going all off right before he gets Vlad the Impaled, he pretty much just like raises his arms in the air like a glowing one from New Vegas, and I just could not stop laughing.
I got it. You got it. You got it.
Back to the point is that out of all the games we could pick, we picked Rainbow Six, Vegas 2, and then like halfway through our playthrough at some point, a character named Jung needed to be revived. And you just have to ask yourself, was that synchronicity? Was that a coincidence? Like, what were the odds we were going to pick this game and then a character named Jung would be in it? The blonde girl, Casey, and Matt, they ended up being the love interest for each other. Casey just seems to be everywhere Matt goes and always with like a camera that she's like vlogging, and then Matt ends up eventually using the cameras, and it's a whole little subplot that goes on for romance because it has to have romance, and there is synchronicity involved in that, I would say. So that's just one example. The collective unconscious is pretty much innate to like it's innate to just humankind, that as humans we have a collective experience like of all of our ancestors. We have an ancestral experience just innately embedded within us that we know, and out from that comes behaviors, and those behaviors also stem from these things we call, or Jung calls, archetypes. And archetypes are essentially, they could be a variety of things. How these behaviors from our collective unconscious manifest themselves and adapt and apply to reality usually come out in the form of these archetypes. So for example, one of the archetypes is the hero. It doesn't matter whether you're a billionaire in New York or you're a, you're a Cambodian from a village in a hut. It does not matter. There is a collective unconscious archetype of the hero that manifests itself within culture for both of them. Whether it may be the hero is like a movie, action superhero, or it's with the hut, it's just like in their mythos. But even then, we see it always in religion, like a death and rebirth cycle or a resurrection cycle. We always see that with, Christianity or in Buddhism. Like with the Egyptian religion, traditionally there is an underworld and there's resurrection that occurs. Again, compared to Christianity, there is some collective unconscious archetypes of resurrection at work there. So what does that have to do with Chronicle, once again? So in Chronicle, we obviously see the hero archetype through Matt when he comes and tries to redeem Andrew, or at least save him, save the day, save all the people dying. He saves his father. Those behaviors are just innately a part of him, but they come out as a hero archetype in this case. Now, Andrew's going off the deep end about being an apex predator and natural selection, which could come right into like many of the archetypes, like his archetype that he struggles with throughout the movie. And something I want to stress that's important here: an archetype is not a personality type. It's not like a Myers-Briggs. It's how the collective unconscious behaviors manifest themselves and then are applied to reality. The shadow, which is what Andrew is very attuned with. The shadow is pretty much representing, like, Andrew throughout this whole movie is abused by his father. He's not really well liked at school. He's picked on by even his closest person to him, his cousin, Matt. His shadow is essentially his repressed negative emotions, or at least in terms of this social hierarchy. What happens is that the shadow usually forms when there's a lot of like social backlash or mistreatment towards the individual. And what happens to Andrew is that Andrew is essentially bullied, and then he goes to one this kid goes to one high school party, fucks it up, pukes on a girl, and then that's it. He's a supervillain. I mean, if you really think about it, the pacing of this movie is fast, which everybody should appreciate in something like this. It's like an unsuperhero movie, like Unbreakable. Like, how long do you really want to watch them before they start fighting and doing crazy shit, like with the bullets at the end, which is amazing. You know, everybody should enjoy the last couple minutes of this movie. It's on a $12 million budget. They did really good CGI. I have a quote right now from verywellmind.com. The shadow is an archetype that consists of the sex and life instincts. The shadow exists as part of the unconscious mind and is composed of repressed ideas, weaknesses, desires, instincts, and shortcomings. You can already see where this is going. And then the shadow forms out of our attempts to adapt to cultural norms and expectations. So obviously there's a lot of expectations for Andrew. Cool, he wants to be like Steve, or not like Steve, but Steve is like Michael B. Jordan, by the way. He's Michael B. Jordan. All those social cues just hit. He's Mr. Popular. Andrew's like the polar opposite of that. And he's trying to become friends with Steve. He becomes friends with Steve, and then he like tries to adapt essentially to Steve's cultural norms and his expectations of just what it's like to be popular in high school. It just fails. I mean, he tries with this magic trick, so he does this magic show, but he, like I said, he goes to one high school party and then that's it. He's a supervillain. He's mad. He kills Steve and he just goes off. I mean, talk about the shadow. I mean, it's just a lot of interesting things, like archetypes of like the wise old man, the trickster, the father, and the mother. They're just like the mother in this movie, in Chronicle. She's really ill. She's dying the whole movie, and then she does die. But whenever we see her, it's a very nurturing and comforting moment in the movies. And these are archetypes and their behaviors being applied to reality. Chronicle is a pretty good movie for $12 million of a budget. There is some other things you could try to overanalyze here, but this is a found footage movie, ladies and gentlemen. It's found footage. It's 2012, and it's like an unsuperhero movie about high schoolers. Like, how much is there really to analyze here? I don't want to overanalyze it and then overdo it, and then you're just watching this like, why is he trying so hard? Why is there so much presentation for just this? This is it? This is how you stretched out your 10... Altruism is mentioned in this, but it really just like, it's just like a little thing in the dialogue. Again, that has nothing to do with really the movie. It's just a philosophical concept, just like hubris is mentioned. It's really funny that after Matt declares he wants to be a cop, he's literally the first person to be like, we need rules. You can't just do that to this guy. You can't just throw him off the road. Andrew's already on that apex predator route. It's a pretty cool movie, but you really are just gonna enjoy that last 20 minutes of it. Yeah, so that's my video on Chronicle, and just talking about some of the philosophy in it. It's a little bit less organized, a little bit more free-flowing, more me talking. This is a one take. I'm trying to change up the videos. If you did enjoy this video, I do hope you consider subscribing. There's going to be a lot more film-related content, maybe some more documentary. Like I have at the beginning of the video, I've been seeing your comments. we're gonna keep the videos coming, and I'm gonna try to keep doing it better and better and better. This one was a little bit just more for fun, just for me. Nobody really even talks about Chronicle anymore. None of my friends had seen it up until I made them watch it last night. So, or rather, actually at like 4 in the morning today. So this is Sid with Let's Make It Official signing off, and I hope you have a good night, ladies and gentlemen.
Colonized. Second verse, I'ma wreck the verse. I only care about the bottom line. Hip hop is my board game. I floor the game, I monopolize. She looks inside my eyes and all she sees some dollar signs.